All right, sorry I couldn't be with you today, but wanted to share a few pieces and kind of underlying principles that guide what we do as a school jurisdiction. That'll be some considerations and to when we look at the big rocks for the quality learning environment. So, an underpinning of documents from Alberta Ed is the document is Inspiring Education. It is no longer on the government website. But this was put together in 2010 as a vision of education looking forward. It was developed by the previous government, and it's officially not something that the government celebrates or shares anymore, but it created the underpinnings for this, which is the Ministerial Order on Student Learning. And there's always one of these. This is the current one. This one replaced one from 1998 that basically gives marching orders to say this is what education should look like in Alberta. And this is where we see our 3 E's, which again, not widely used, but the spirit and intent is still there. So this was done by Jeff Johnson, the education minister after Dave Hancock. There's a short one in there, so you can see there's one repealed. We're not sure if we're going to get another one of these at some point, but this one is still in play and gives us some guidance on where we're going. And it's a lot of what we do. So it's a good one to look at in terms of how we operate in the school division. Now, there's a couple of other documents that guide what we do as well. One is the Learning and Technology Policy Framework, and this shows how we should be looking at learning and technology in the school division. The Inclusive Education Policy Framework that says how do we deal with inclusion and those areas, which lead us into the Guide to Education. Now, the Guide to Education is published or updated every year, and this is very much Alberta Ed telling school divisions, this is what you have to do. It's a good one to look at because it's very much rules and regulations, but it also gives us our big pieces and guides on how we do different things like hours of instruction, things like how we report home, how you graduate, important pieces. So it's a good one when you're trying to find how does this work and why does this work? Which leads us into the curriculum. So we have a current K-12 curriculum. It's rather old in a lot of cases, and we're in a process of curriculum change. When? This is the current pathway. We are here. We are actually beginning to develop the draft learning outcomes. We are seeing what might an implementation model look like. We are expecting to see those outcomes sometime. We're moving from pink into orange pretty quick. But when we already see April to August, a validation process for those draft learning outcomes for K-4. You can see how that carries through. The guiding framework for the program of studies is a really interesting one. And it's a lot of words, but it gives us what's going to be in our different curriculum. So it's broken into chunks differently. Kindergarten to 4. They're looking at grades 5 to 10 and 11 to 12. Looking at a lot of pluralism and diversity built in. Inclusion principles, FNMI principles, and Francophone perspectives all built right in across all the different curricula. So these are important pieces. There's one piece that I really wanted to show you. Competencies. So the competencies, which were originally just spelled out in the ministerial order as A to J, they've been updated to be 8 of them, are in place still. So these competencies are going to be built into the curriculum outcomes. And so you might see a curriculum outcome in science, and they might link then to critical thinking and how that fits in. What does that actually look like? We'll find out when the draft outcomes show. So through that, we also see the importance of literacy and numeracy built in. So literacy and numeracy are defined by Alberta Education. So what's numeracy, what's literacy, and those pieces are also going to be built right into outcomes. So those are important big rocks that will span across all the different curriculums. Talks about how technology fits into that, which is excellent. Now this shows us how our curriculum is coming forward. So the guiding framework, which is what I have open, subject introductions instead of front matter, scope and sequence. We've seen these subject introductions and scope and sequences in draft form. They're being finalized, and we're starting to hope that we're going to have subject learning outcomes that we start to see coming soon. Inside those subject outcomes, this is the interesting piece, is they're talking about procedural and conceptual knowledge. So within a learning outcome, you're going to see what are the concepts we need to learn, what are the procedures we need to learn, what are the competencies built into that, and then what are the literacy and numeracy pieces built into that. So that is a really interesting piece to look at when we're thinking about a quality learning environment. If our learning outcomes incorporate those, how should those work into that? So some important pieces to think about in terms of what we're going to see in new curriculum design, as we also consider the new teacher quality standard, and all the other pieces that we do in Wild Rose. So Wild Rose has tried to encompass these things in our 5 learning goals. We're actually in the 2nd year of having these same 5 learning goals. We've had different focuses every year, and different schools have taken that on in different ways. But these big 5 rocks are how Wild Rose sees the implementation of all of these pieces that we have coming down from Alberta Ed. So hopefully that narrows it down a little bit, or at least gives you a wider picture of the playing field that we have.